Welcome to FinTalks, a chat with FinanceMalta Members Edition. With me today I have Fran Moisa, who is Headhunting and Talent Advisory. And with her today, we will be discussing during this podcast how to recruit and retain employees. I think this is a very topical subject during this period of time that we are living, I believe. And obviously, my first question to you is, what has changed in the way potential employees select potential jobs, opportunities in the past 24 months?
Good morning. Good morning, Rachel, and thank you very much for having me. So before I answer directly to that question, I will take you a little bit back, pre-pandemic. And specifically in Malta, pre-pandemic, we have experienced a very fast economic growth. I mean, I've been here in Malta for 8 years, and the talent demand has exceeded consistently the supply. So the challenges that employers are experiencing are not solely condensed within the pandemic period. And we saw that in areas that are experiencing a higher demand than a supply of professionals, there is a lot more competition between employers. And this has led to a change in the way that prospective employees approach opportunities. So even pre-pandemic, employees were looking at opportunities that gave them flexibility. Because we talk a lot about flexibility during this past 24 months, but actually this has happened even before. It has been highlighted even more during the pandemic, but it was present in the market before the pandemic. So flexibility is one thing. And number two, it would come very closely with regards to the value proposition that a business has. So employees have a wide variety of choices now. They can select between 3, 4, and sometimes even more opportunities in the market, and they will lean towards those that are credible from a reputational point of view, B, that align with their professional goals, and that is clearly highlighted during the recruitment process, and 3, there has been a consumer shift, and again this has happened even before the pandemic, where employees and consumers alike are aligning themselves with businesses that are actively involved in creating positive change in society. Now, this can take the shape of corporate social responsibility programs, charity aid, or any other form that somehow goes beyond the business as it is day to day, and it contributes directly to making a positive impact in society. And when the pandemic hit, of course, it brought with it a lot of changes in the last 24 months. And the most prevalent one is the one relating to the way of working. And employees have realized that they can do the work that they need to do from home or from a remote office, not necessarily within the physical office of the business that they are employed in. Of course, this doesn't apply to all sectors, like doctors, for example, right? They're not going to operate on someone remotely. But for the purposes of office roles, this has really put sort of a magnifying glass on how companies operate and how employees perceive trust.
Also because technology helped us as well to
Technology helped a lot, but it has a lot to do now with trust. Now, I speak a lot with professionals from all walks of life, from juniors all the way up to C-level. And it's not so much about flexibility per se, in the sense that if you don't want to come in the office today, you don't need to come in. You can work from home because you have, like you said, the technological tools to do your role. But it's about trust. Employers trusting employees to carry their responsibilities regardless of where they are based and without micromanagement. So when employees are now considering opportunities, they will look at that. They won't necessarily look at, we have a flexible working policy. Okay, that is great, to have that flexibility if your child is sick, if your car doesn't start in the morning. But they will look deeper to understand what that means in the level of trust. Am I micromanaged even if I am from home? I've read an article I don't think it's in Europe, but they were saying that remote employees have like cameras, to monitor them when they're working and like login details and stuff. That's taking it to the extreme. So you have the flexible model, but you don't have the trust. So they have to go hand in hand, and this is what employees are looking for. And before, this wasn't so strong as it is now, as it has become in the last 24 months, because employees want to be trusted. And like I said, also, it has changed the way that employees approach potential companies. So they're looking for the companies to be of a good reputational standing, not only from a service or product point of view, but also from an employee perspective. They start looking at things of like how many employees is the company losing on a yearly basis? Is it a high turnover of staff?
Can I just stop you there, because this is a very crucial point. I feel that in the past, in the recent years, I would say, let's say 5 years, the turnover, at least if I zoom on Malta, the turnover has been quite rapid, as in, changing all the time.
Yes.
So I'm not sure you as an advisor you can tell us what exactly is happening. Is this something that the young people are just interested to hop from one place to the other, or because there is something fundamentally wrong?
I think it's a combination of many reasons. So number one, it has to do, as I said, with the economic growth. So normally the demand has went up for employees and the supply has not kept up with the demand. So obviously this has created some gaps. Now, the most obvious way to resolve that and the handiest way to resolve that for a business is to increase salaries. So this is why you've noticed in the last couple of years people moving jobs, is because they were getting sometimes increases of salaries. However, that only lasts for that long. Actually, the main reason that people move jobs it has to do a little bit with the remuneration, but is not even in the top 3 reasons. Considering a recent study. It has to do with opportunities for learning, opportunities for growth and professional development. So when you start seeing employees moving very quickly from one place to another, it can be due to remuneration in a very small part, but most of the time it has to do with the exposure that one would get by moving jobs. Okay, so employees are looking, and going back to the first question, what has changed in the way that employees are considering job opportunities? They're looking for roles where they have an opportunity to grow, and that doesn't mean necessarily grow in direct connection with their role, but through cross collaboration. Now, companies that retain the staff the best are the ones that create opportunities for different departments to collaborate together and learn from each other.
So when you say opportunities, it's not just salary, but training, for example.
Training,
right?
Exactly. Exposure to different areas of the business. I'll give you a very basic example. Auditors, for example. There is a big demand for auditors in Malta, and there never seems to be enough going around. Now, usually the career progression of an auditor starts as, audit junior, associate, senior 1, senior 2, and so on and so forth, until they reach partner level. And that is a very logical career progression, and it makes sense from a warrant perspective. But companies that expose their auditors to areas such as tax, compliance, and advisory retain them for far longer, because even though it may not be directly related to their professional growth as per the CPA warrant, it does help them understand more about what the business is doing and more about how their job fits into the bigger picture. And when people feel aligned with the vision of the company, and when they feel that they are involved in those areas that the business services in, they stay longer with the business.
Okay, so basically it seems that it depends also on the area that you're specializing with. Yes. I mean, certain areas have naturally high turnover, like, for example, the hospitality industry. A lot of them come here just for the summer, for example, or if they're expat, they spend here a year or two and then they leave, and that creates a natural turnover. That will always be the case. And there's nothing necessarily wrong with it. It's very difficult for businesses, though, to cope with that sort of
cycle. It's very daunting.
It's demanding as well.
Very demanding, stressful, and costly as well. But some industries do have that nature of natural turnover.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how can companies improve their processes?
Mhm. So, talking specifically to relating to the present day, I would advise in several areas. So, number one, before actually going to market to find a new employee, companies really need to identify exactly what they're looking for. In my experience, companies form a definitive view of what they want and what they need, usually after at least 2 interview cycles. That means we see 2-3 people today, we realize this is not exactly what we want, we're going to tweak it here and there, and then they start interviewing again, and months pass. Okay, the longer you have a vacancy left unfilled, the harder it becomes to be filled. And it can become very costly to the business. So before going to market, companies really, really need to identify exactly what they want from that job vacancy. So I would advise them to think of 3 key problems they want this vacancy to solve. Saying that you need a financial controller because you need someone to keep track of the finances in the company is not enough. Okay, you need to understand what exactly that financial controller will be doing to solve the problems for you. Is it a backlog? Is it implementing a new system? And so on and so forth. Then when it comes to the interview process, it needs to be fit for purpose. Some recruitment processes take way too long. And we're talking here of weeks and weeks of interviewing. You meet 10 different people in the business. Now, sometimes those meetings are warranted, especially at C-level, but no role warrants a process longer than a month in general, because people lose interest, and there will be your competitors that are going to move quicker than you, and you're going to miss out on talent. And then it comes on to onboarding. It's really important to have a very clear onboarding procedure where you introduce that person into the business. Seeing them, letting them see how things are done is not enough to retain interest of a person. You have to involve them. There has to be clarity, and there has to be collaboration between the employer and prospective employees. Now, some companies do that, but most of the situations that I encounter in the market, they do 1 or 2 of these things, but never all together. Very few to all of them together. So in order to improve the way that companies recruit, they really need to take a holistic approach and try and cover as many angles as possible, but especially the crucial angles, understanding what you want, having an effective interview process and an effective onboarding process. Having just 2 of these is going to leave you exposed.
In all this, I mean, these are very important tips that you just gave. But do you believe that even the institutions, local institutions like FinanceMalta, like university, MCAST, can also be more involved in choosing the best talent? Because when you attend conferences, one common factor that you hear is that lack of human resources, lack of skills.
Yes.
So, that's one of the biggest challenge for an employer.
Yes, absolutely. From a quality perspective, I think the institutions in Malta, the training institutions, do have a high standard of quality when it comes to the curriculum and the subjects that they teach. Since I've been here for the past 8 years, there has been a lot more collaboration between industry and educational institutes, but I still feel there is a discrepancy between the two. And I'll give you a very basic example.
Sometimes they're disjointed as well, I feel.
I'm not sure if I will necessarily call it disjointed, but a little bit, I would say, out of touch with the demands of professionals. And I will give you a very specific example of what I mean by that. I would love to take a master's degree, okay, but most of the master's degree that I'm interested in are full-time or during the day, okay. Now we work, and I would definitely urge educational institutes to look at online learning degrees, not
classes.
evening classes, but predominantly online degrees, because most professionals that reach a certain age, so like myself, for example, I've got a family and I'm working. Even if you put the classes in the evening, it's still going to be quite difficult for me to attend. There are some online options, but nowhere near enough to complement and supplement the demand that is needed. Short courses that are recognized by employers and institutions. Now we have the ACCA. So for example, when you look at the accountancy sector, you have employers that, have been certified ACCA employers, which is great. But what about all the other sectors, like insurance, for example, like compliance? For compliance, there is the International Compliance Diploma, which is a fantastic tool, but it has only started to be recently promoted. And I think when someone takes a role, employers, together with educational institutes, they should come together and really map out a training plan for the individuals. And also it has a lot to do with the openness of employers. Look, most people want to hire people that can do the job very quickly because it saves time and money. It's very understandable, but that's not possible because there aren't simply enough people to go around. So what do you do then? You cross-train. You open the market to individuals that are adjacent to what you need, but you invest in them by training. But not a lot of employers are willing to do that. And it can be because of limitations in terms of resources and capacity, because it's not an easy task to do. But it can also have to do with the lack of support. Okay.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And obviously my last question would be, what should be the top priorities now for employees?
So the top priorities for employees, it really depends on what they feel it is of value. Some of them that have families will find flexibility very valuable when they're making a choice. Others that are just starting out in their career, they will find training to be a priority. But speaking in general terms, if I was to, choose something that would be a broad statement that would fit everyone, regardless of where they are at the career level, is to give time for their choice to come to fruition. Now, that means that as much as employers have a responsibility to involve you, train you, and trust you, it goes both ways. It goes from the other side. So allow yourself the time to learn and to grow. And be open with your employer. Create open channels of communication. This is what I was talking about, trust at the beginning. It's really important to have that. So a top priority for employees should be choose a company where you feel comfortable speaking out. So then you can give it the time, they can give you the time, and together you can find the common ground between you. If you choose a company that pays you, for example, an amazing salary, but no one listens to you, you are going to leave that company significantly quicker than what you thought you're going to do. Because the sweetness of the paycheck only lasts for this long.
Thank you, Fran Moisa, Headhunting Advisor and Talent Advisory as well. Thank you for joining us and thank you for your insight. It was a very interesting discussion. You can follow this discussion on all social media platforms and on the FinanceMalta YouTube channel. Thank you very much and I wish you all a happy Christmas.